bee face. And so a lot of us Christian women have resting bee face, or we wear the title ABW, angry black woman, and so we have to cast those things down and not be receptive. I don't receive that. That's not my portion. Proverbs 31 said that I was virtuous, and you know the law of kindness rests on my lips, and so I am a woman of wisdom, and the heart of my husband does safely trust in me. I will do him good and not evil all the days of my life, and I need you to understand that's more than just with you cooking and cleaning and chunking the booty real good. That's also with your words. You have to always do him good with your words, even when things are heated, even when things are intense, not just for you, but for the women that God has called you to lead, equip, train, and empower. I have another note that says, remember to bring joy into his atmosphere on purpose, regardless of how strenuous your current circumstances may be. Now, I discovered this in verses 15 through 17 in Proverbs chapter 15. I'm just sharing with you guys what God spoke to me, and it shifted my focus. We're not always mindful that we're not only, because sometimes we focus on peace and just being quiet, but we don't focus on bringing, hey, Stephanie, thank you for coming back. We don't focus on ushering in that joy. And when I saw that in the word of God, I said, okay, God, that's my portion. I'm always looking on ways to improve myself, my spirit, my countenance, my demeanor, and my marriage ministry. I want my husband, he's always happy, he's always smiling, people always tell him that. And I want that to be, we're only 12 years in, but I want that to be 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. I know that death is going to do us part, but I want those years to be great years. I want him to always say we've had more good years than bad. Be the peacemaker and the calmer of every storm in his life. I read that in verse 18. Hey, Big Daddy, my husband is joining. Hallelujah. Being the peacemaker and the calmer of every storm in his life is not something that's easy to master, but it is something that the Father requires. Unfortunately, everywhere you look in the Bible, it was God or two people that brought peace to men. There was God, and then there, of course, was the woman. And so if you understand that you were designed for this, you were created for this, there was something clearly missing in his life that he didn't identify, but God identified. Hey, Kai, thanks for joining. God identified. God said, it's not good for man to be alone. Let me give him an helper. And so if you get a revelation on how important you are to God, you are a tailor-made minister by God. You have been chosen and handpicked by God to meet a deep need in your husband. And so when you understand that power, it's not hard for you to get your mouth under control and to curtail some of your lists of demands and relax all of the strenuous standards and requests that you have on the man of God. Some of us are ridiculous. The man has to jump through hoops just to get to a place of faux peace with us. It's not even real peace, but just to the point where we're not raising hell and being cantankerous and contentious with them. And so make sure that you bridle your tongue with the law of kindness, joy, and that you usher in a spirit of peace when you come into your husband's atmosphere, even when things are tense. Remember, I told you, don't even address crazy situations that he's doing until you're spoken to. Practice shut-it ministry when things are tense or you're frustrated or you're irritated. Allow the Spirit of God to give you the wisdom. Allow the Spirit of God to attest to let the Spirit on the inside of him bear witness to the Spirit on the inside of you. My husband is always kissing my feet because I'll say something to him. I'll bring to his attention that something needs to be corrected. Honey, I'm glad you jumped on this. And so I used to curse and yell and he used to call me Dino, but I don't anymore. And so now he'll come back and he'll kiss my feet and he'll say, honey, you deserve better than that. And thank you for bringing that to my attention. I love you for telling me the way that you tell me. And so they do have an appreciation for it when we put it into practice and into operation. Another note says, never allow him to have valid reason to view you as lazy or unproductive. Now that just kind of goes without saying. I saw that in verse 19. My husband's note says that's because they don't have peace within themselves. Oh, wow. Okay. And yeah, I think I covered that a little bit in the first video. A lot of times we don't have that inner peace. And so it's difficult for us to usher peace if we don't have inner peace. And so, honey, I said on the first video to all of the women that we need to pursue that inner peace. We need to identify those roots that have caused that bitterness and that unkind or that unpleasant disposition and that pain, and go through the process of being healed, delivered, and set free so that we can flow freely in our ministry assignments as helpmeets and as wives. Hey, Pastor Christina, thank you for joining us. California in the house. I have another note that says, make sure he knows that you're interested in pleasing or honoring his parents as possible. I've never had an issue with my mother-in-law or my father-in-law. They've been amazing. I told my mother-in-law she should write a book because she is just, there's nothing better on earth as far as, I can imagine, because everything that I understood a virtuous mother-in-law to be, she's that. She's not in our business. She's not butting in. She's not calling my husband every 5 minutes. She's not tearing me down or telling him what's wrong with me. No. When we want something from her or we need help, she's there for us, and she's helped us each time that we've gone to her. But she doesn't give us difficulty or give us a hard time about anything else, and she doesn't make us feel bad if we're not around every day. It's peaceful. I just have nothing but great things to say about her. And so I'm praying that you guys get to that place with your mother-in-laws. But I believe if you treat the sons the way they're supposed to be treated and allow the fruit of God's Spirit to manifest itself in your behavior, in your tone, and your facial expressions, it will manifest through him. And every mom that really loves her son wants him to be happy and wants him to be treated well. So you will win her if you're having strain in that situation by treating him as the proper prophet, priest, and king that God put him in your life for him to be. I have another note that says, be open to receiving counsel and encourage your husband to do the same. Don't wait. So many people do this. Don't wait until things are terrible before you make the wise choice of seeking the advice of someone who has been where you're trying to go. And don't foolishly go to people who are not in a healthy marriage for counsel. It's just not wise. I'm not saying that they don't have something to offer you, but it's hard for you to prove to me that a principle works, and I don't see you being able to apply it in your own life. And so if you're going to be mentored by someone, let it be a wife that is happy in her marriage, because she's not going to come in faith agreement with your gloom and your doom, and you're not going to be able to piss and whine and moan and complain on her shoulder about your husband, because she's going to tell you need to get your mind and your mouth right concerning your marriage and your husband. She's going to open up the Bible and help you to identify why and what God expects. And it's challenging sometimes when stuff is crazy and it's strained. And then the church people, a lot of us are fake and phony, and we are not authentic. And so we don't say that we've had problems. I always tell you guys, my husband and I have had a ton of problems, and we've overcome so much because we didn't see people. And I saw the pastors and his wife at the church that, I came from. I saw that it was raggedness and that, but they would get in front of us and teach in the marriage counseling, in the married couples meetings. And I mean, with power and with conviction. So I knew that they would get through it. I didn't know how, but I knew that they would get, through it. There's a difference. When you see people where there's clear dysfunction, if they've got the makings or they've got the ingredients to overcome that thing, then yes, latch on to that teaching. But if they're living in two separate houses or they're living together, but they're separated, you always see one without the other. And it's not because they're two preachers preaching in two different places. It's crazy. Or they come to church, one sitting in the front, the other one sitting in the back. You don't even know they're married and all that foolishness. No. I'm not going to tell you not to. I wouldn't recommend that you plug into those people for wise counsel. Hey, Daniel Davis, thank you for joining. And so I want to move on with that because I dealt a little bit with it, but I read in Proverbs. Y'all know I read a proverb every day, and I usually read by the date, but God is taking me backwards. I don't know why. I'm just enjoying it. I'm finding these nuggets because I read in Proverbs 14 that it was actually the first verse. The wise woman builds her house on a foundation of godly precepts. This is powerful. And her household thrives. But the foolish one who lacks spiritual insight tears it down with her hands by ignoring godly principles. Now, the Bible says, give honor to whom honor is due. Communicate well with them who have rule over you. All of that great stuff. Hey, Prophetess Lynne, there are so many biblical principles that tell us how we should communicate with our men of God. We must be humble. We must allow our tongues to be bridled. We must speak to him as if we would speak to the Lord. And that's tough sometimes because he is a man. He is in flesh. He makes mistakes. He gets on your nerves. He irritates you. But that respect and that honor it's not compromisable. Because the moment you lose it, there are two things that are hard to do in a marriage. Once they happen, you can almost might as well get a divorce because you'd have to be 1,000% committed to manifest the change. One is a woman losing respect for her husband and regaining it. if she's not totally committed to regaining that respect and he's not totally committed to winning her again, it never works out. The second one is cheating. I know she's saying some hard stuff, my God, but it's the truth. When infidelity has taken place, if both parties are not committed to working diligently to mend that fence, and that means, oh gosh, and it's tough. I don't know who this is for, but if you're in it and you've cheated or he's cheated and you're trying to work through it, if he cheated on you, if you really wanted to work, you've got to forgive him. But then let me tell you the second thing. You've got to identify what you did to contribute to him cheating. Now, if he's just a whore and and it has nothing to do with you, that's one thing. But typically Christian men who seriously love their wives and have a walk with God, they don't just go out and cheat. Usually, like I said, they're starved. And so you got to deal with that. You got to find out what could you have done differently, women and men too. Find out what and make the change. And don't hold it against them. Don't keep rehearsing it. Let your communication not be accusatory, because again, the word of God says that Satan is the accuser of the brethren. So remember to build up and speak things of faith. We're going to get through this. God has given us wisdom. He's plugging us into counselors and life coaches and mentors who can coach us through this. Failure is not an option. I'm not going to leave you. Hey, Pastor Janice Stevens, I'm not leaving you. We're not getting a divorce. Our family is not going to be destroyed. The enemy is not going to win. You have to train your mouth to speak blessings and reassurance. I can remember, hey, Lakeisha Dixon, thank you for joining. I can remember about a week or so ago, my husband was going through something emotionally, and he was, because everybody knows I'm very open about this. I'm extremely sexual. I enjoy sex a whole lot. And it was just really powerful for me to not I'm thinking we're good because my husband, he does a great job. He's the best lover I've ever had. And he wasn't when I got with him. That grew over time, and that's not what I'm here to talk about. But he was concerned about satisfying me and keeping things spicy. And I said to him, babe, we're good. I'm quite satisfied with everything the way it is. Don't change. Matter of fact, don't change a thing. Shabba-bye. And as a result of me telling him that, it gave him peace in his spirit. A lot of times the men don't know, and they need us to reassure them. Our communication is supposed to comfort and confirm and encourage and strengthen and motivate them. I see a note that says, for every reaction, there is an action. You're speaking the truth. Yes, of course. And so a lot of times we don't realize that. We just ridicule and ostracize the person. And I just know, having been the person, I didn't go out and have an affair on my husband or do, I love you, Carlos, go out and do stupid stuff. However, I was the outcast. I was the one that brought reproach on us or embarrassment or shame to us. And so I can remember my husband just speaking love and speaking faith and declaring what God said, and what's manifesting in our lives now is what he spoke to me 10, 11, 12 years ago. So I just want to make sure that you guys are focused on that, because wisdom, I have a note that says wisdom causes us to only loose positive, inspiring, motivational things in our husbands' atmospheres that will encourage them to continue to pursue. Hey, Big Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. Wisdom causes us to loose things that are going to encourage, motivate, and inspire them, so that they can continue to pursue their purpose, their goals, their dreams, whatever God said. We are there. We're cheerleaders. We're coaches. We are mentors. We're assistants. I'm every woman. It's all in me. No, he ain't got to go. My husband doesn't have to go to another woman for anything. Everything that the brother needs, I love you too, Kev. Everything that he needs, I make it happen to the best of my ability. I'm guilty of learning stuff. I do a lot of stuff I knew nothing about when I married him. But because I discovered relatively quickly it was something he needed, sister girl is not going to be taking care of that. No, we're not going to have Lucy. We're going to have Lynne. I have another note that says most men already view us as silly, ignorant, or contentious. And that's why some of your husbands address you in the manner that they do. But it's God's will for us through discipline, meekness, and complete humility to change their perceptions of us overall. You've got to get to the place where you're focused on uprooting that. Let me read, because it didn't just start today. I found out that this thing has been going on way back in biblical days. I got to read this to you. Let's see. There's a note that says, Prophetess, I love your realness. Sex is real and great. Church women need to catch this honesty. I'm praying that they will. That's the main reason why I'm doing these episodes and allowing people to see. Well, now that God has told me that there are people watching this, they're not going to acknowledge it. They're not going to say you inspire me or you encourage me or whatever. They're just going to go and do what they're supposed to do. And that's all we need, as long as it gets done. I'll be the sacrificial lamb. I don't care who knows. It's not a secret. I got sex tapes and everything else. You know what I mean? So there it is. Okay. And as I was saying, most men in the church, their negative perception of us, it didn't start today. I have to be honest with you. I've read Ecclesiastes 1,000 times. Thousands. But when I was reading in verse 7 today, this jumped out and I said I wanted to share it with you guys. Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verses 27 and 28. And I think it's the Amplified, it may be the Message. I don't have the note to tell me which one, but it says, I study King James Amplified and Message. But it says, verse 27, this is my conclusion, says the preacher. Mind you, this is the preacher. Step by step, I came to this result after researching in every direction. 0.1% of the men I interviewed could be said to be wise. Now, 0.1% of the men could be said to be wise. But watch the next statement. But not one woman! Exclamation point. This man researched, interviewed all these people. He could not find one woman that he viewed as wise. Look at verse 28. And I found that though God has made men upright, each has turned away to follow his own downward road. We've got to understand, women, that a lot of men, like in Church of Christ, some women, most Church of Christ, there are a couple that let women preach and teach, but most of them don't acknowledge women as preachers or teachers or whatever. And so even though it clearly says in Matthew 28:19, go ye therefore, and he wasn't talking to just men or women, he was talking to all of us. Let's see. Yes, be his lady and be a freak. Love this. I love it. We got to get to the place where we are focused on changing our communication to where the men don't view us as silly and stupid and foolish and contentious and, rottenness to their bones. I have friends that are close to me that I love, dearly, and they're in love with men that love them, but the men won't marry them because they don't realize that contention is attached to them. Chaos follows them into every arena that they go into, and they don't know how to shift and transition and humble themselves and be led. And ladies, men need to be the leaders. They need to know that when they say stop talking, you're actually going to stop talking. But some of us are so highly opinionated and we are so whatever. We can see the mote in our brother, the speck of dust in our sister's eyes, but we can't see the log that's in our own eyes. And I said, God, thank you for teaching me how to respond to the first voice. I don't need a bunch of witnesses. And those of you that have tried to bring witnesses to me, you don't have to. You say what it is that you say. I'm going to take it before the Lord. If it applies to me, I'm going to make the adjustment. If it doesn't, I'm going to renounce it and throw it to the ground. Don't go through the process of getting a lynch mob against you and letting people come together with a lot of negativity, especially when you've been bound by crippled communication in the past. We've got to change that. Don't wait for a whole lynch mob. When you hear that first negative interaction, go before God, take it as him speaking to you through them, and just make the adjustment. You don't have to go through, because a lot of times these people have these negative opinions of you. They don't have an impact on your life one way or another, and you don't have an impact on theirs. So stop getting caught up in that. I need your focus to be more on being meek and humble, because if you can practice this with your husband, when you deal in society every day, it's going to begin to manifest there. And what I've learned to do is say, okay, I check the value. Okay, does this have something to do with my life? Does this have something to do with my destiny? Because if it doesn't, it's irrelevant. But if it does, I'm taking it to heart. Those people who are connected to your destiny, you need to listen to them. Let's see. I'm learning to watch the counsel of other leaders that cause division because unresolved healing in their own life. Amen. Hey, Rachel Jones, thanks for joining. That's wise. You can always identify. I have friends. I used to be the one with the terrible reputation. I'm talking about with preachers and other cities and other places because I was loud. I was rebellious. I was disrespectful. I was rude, but I was very wounded. I felt rejected and unloved, unwelcomed, unwanted, and unappreciated in so many environments. And it's hard to pretend like you're so happy, happy, joy, joy when you're in a room full of people that you know don't want to be around you, or you know, hey, Pastor Keisha, thank you for joining. When you know that they don't want to be around you, or they really don't have your best interest at heart, or they think the worst of you, it's difficult to communicate well with them. And so I'm telling you guys, you need to use your husbands to practice, because your mind and your mouth has to be right with God. And so you have more communication typically with your husband than anybody else on earth. So start with him. I mean, tonight, ask God to forgive you. Go to your husbands, ask your husbands to forgive you and say, honey, I'm new at this. I'm just now, if you want to plug into my mentorship, go to my Facebook page, Help Meet Ministry. It's a private group, so just submit your request, and of course, I'll accept you or approve you. Excuse me, if you have problems with that, just inbox me personally and I'll add you to the group. If you're my friend, just follow me on Facebook. All of these posts and these updates will automatically pop up in your notification globe on Facebook when we're doing this. I will help you to the best of my ability. I'm not perfect. I don't have it all together. And God knows I haven't mastered a lot of things that I desire to master. But I realize I'm further along in this than some of my sisters and some of my friends and a lot of my daughters. And so for that reason, some people may view this as elementary teaching. But for those of you where this is water to dry places, allow God to use me to minister to you. Allow God to use these words to dig up that root of dysfunction in your communication, so that you're not this spiritual dynamo in public places and in the pulpit and around people, but privately, the moment your husband makes you angry, you're letting him have it in the most unimaginable way. And so some of you have family members that view you negatively. You have friends that speak negatively of you and the way that you communicate. There's some truth to that. They're not all haters. They're not all jealous. There is some truth. Now, there's some jealousy attached to some of it too, especially if you live nice, you're driving nice, or you've got a solid team of people supporting you, or if you've got a good group of people around you that really see value in you, and they don't have that yet. You're going to have to deal with that. But don't mix up and don't confuse the two. There may be jealousy, but still truth attached to what they're saying. And allow God to process that, because it all goes back to how you deal. It all goes back to your first marriage, your first ministry, which is your marriage. Your husband's got to bear witness to what's going on inside of you. I'm thankful that my husband is able to sing my praise. It blesses me when he does that. It blesses me when my daughter stands up before the church and talks about the changes that she's seen. Because people who live in the house with you are going to tell people exactly who you are. When I wasn't in that place, my daughter used to say, God is working on my mom. He's working on her and she's going to overcome this. And I hate it when she used to say those things, but that was her reality. That was her truth. That is what she was witnessing. So if your children are saying embarrassing, hurtful things, or your loved ones, even in a joking manner, take it as truth. Take it seriously, take it to heart, take it before God. Those wounded places, those damaged places that you never got a chance to heal and mend in as a little girl, take those things before the Lord. And again, I cannot stress or emphasize enough the importance of plugging into ongoing developmental teaching. I cannot stress or emphasize enough the importance of allowing God to wash you and cleanse you through someone else's experience. The best experience is another person's. It's easy to learn from someone else's experience, contrary to popular belief. I've never burned my hand on a stove, and I'll be 45 in May. And the reason is because when I was 8 years old, I was boiling some pasta, and I kept telling my little twin sister, who was 6 at the time, stop touching the stove, you're going to burn yourself. And as a result of her reaching over on the fire, me with the pot in my hand trying to swat her hand away, I dashed her with the boiling hot water and scalded her. And that experience, it made me far more careful. But I realized other people's experience. So now I learned I don't have to get hit by the truck. I know look both ways before I cross the street. I've never been hit by a truck. I've never had certain things that happen to me. And so I'm praying that you never have certain things that happen to you as a result of my experience. I'm telling you that I've been through this. I've had people to move away from me. Now people they're calling me all around the country to come and preach, or come to teach, or come to do, my husband and I to do marriage mechanics, or me to come and do women's conferences and things like that. And they're going to do the same for you. Those relationships are going to be restored, or God's going to replace those people with people who do see value in you. But you've got to go through this process first. Allow God to dig up these roots. Allow God to cut away the fat of dysfunction in your communication. Your mind has got to be renewed. Allow God to really heal you for real. Not the play thing for church, but I mean the inner healing that must take place. If you have to go through deliverance, go through deliverance. And then repent. Go to these people that you've been a bee too, and let them know it's not God's will. I apologize. You didn't deserve that. And I'm striving to do something different. Now that I'm allowing God to work in me, I realize that I must make some changes. Because you don't deserve that. That's not why God put you in my life. Once you accept that reality, you'll begin to operate and deal differently. And your husband will bear witness to it. So here's those of you who take notes. My God, let me see. There's a note that says, "This is helping me. This could have helped me save my marriage. Humble is the way. This is awesome. My mouth is a pistol and it stays loaded. I'm taking notes as you speak." Yes, you're not the only one. You're just bold enough to admit the truth. There are many of us. God told me that's why he's got me right here in this vein and not allowing me to move from this place. Those guns are loaded, but you have to put your weapon down. I was about to give you guys, and I'm glad you're taking notes. Oh, you said you confess as well. Thank you, Pastor Christina. And that's where we want to get to. It's not about you guys confessing it to me, but if you're able to admit it, you can identify it, and then God can help you work through it and work past it. So the first thing is put your weapon down. Your weapons are those harmful, sharp words that cut, that offend, that tear down, that insult, that humiliate or embarrass. Put that weapon down. The second thing that you need to do is pick up peace, meekness, humility. Practice smiling before you respond, no matter what, in every setting. So if it's something crazy,